Daylight 24 hours a day.
Really? Oh my God. And hey, you can have some tent for the windows because otherwise I could not sleep if outside it's.
Yeah, you have to have like shutters, that you kind of roll
Yeah.
down, and so otherwise it's hard to sleep. It's sort of strange when it's just that way during summertime.
So
But
Tommy, are
yeah,
you on a tour there or you moved there in Alaska?
I've moved here. I still
Oh,
own a house in Alabama, in
oh,
Fairhope, Alabama, but I'm buying a house here, and we are staying in a rental right now for a while, and so yeah, we've officially moved to Alaska.
okay. Okay. Congrats.
Congratulations. Yeah, normal in the beginning till you find which area to buy, what to buy, because when you are new in a city, you don't know good the areas and you cannot buy it online, let's say, and say
That's
it's
right.
good in
That's
that
right.
area. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. That's why we are renting a little bit, because we have to go around and look at houses and things like that. I don't want to buy a house without seeing it. So
Yeah, yeah. And also maybe good to rent two or three in different areas because like when you live in one area, you can see like this is close to me, that is close to me, the
that's right.
advantages and the disadvantages. When you go to next area, when you are going like passing pedestrian, you don't see, but when you start living there, you say, yeah, but I have that shop close or whatever, that restaurant, or everything is far away or everything is close or whatever. So it's good sometimes to think of it because
You're right.
yeah.
You're absolutely correct. Yes, it's uh, it's absolutely right, and um, you have to think about certain things over here. Like you have to think about road conditions. If you are too high up in a mountain, you may have difficult time getting to work in the morning because of the snow. And also, there's a lot of wildlife here. There are not that many places, at least in the United States, where you have to worry about things like bears in your front yard. There are 97% of the black bear population in the United States are located in Alaska. So there are a lot of black bears here. There are grizzlies here. Obviously, even polar bears, up in the north, and there's moose everywhere. So you have to kind of worry about things that you don't worry about in other places usually. So
Also,
yeah, it's an
yeah, and
interesting.
also for schools, for the kids, if are close or far away, or maybe in which school they will start, like something to
Right,
be close or whatever.
right,
Different
right.
different ages, maybe to have in high school and primary school
Yep,
close, for example. Yeah, so a lot of things that you can't
yep.
using Google
Thank.
Maps or reading
Absolutely.
websites can't
Yeah,
evaluate.
yeah. You certainly understand what my what my dilemma is. It's a step-by-step process. So, but we have a lot of friends here, so it's a good community. A lot of people helping us, so it's gonna be good. But thank you for your understanding. And but I'm happy to be here again with you all. And we're gonna continue our journey through stakeholder issues and social responsibility, and ethical crisis management. And Sarah, thank you for starting the recording. Um, Okay, now it's funny how my computer wants to update, install updates every time when I'm trying to do a chat session. So it was just trying to install something. I had to click it off. So okay, do you have any questions about anything? Before we start.
Hi, doctor. How are you?
Good, good, Rafa. How
Uh,
you doing?
I'm very fine, alhamdulillah. Just wondering when we will have access to the POC, because until now we don't have anything in the Moodle.
You still haven't seen because there's a link or macro he'll connect.
No, there
There's
is
no.
on my side there is no. Only
Okay.
today we just have the week 2 slides. This is the only updates we got.
Okay, I'll because I have access to it in my site, so I don't know. I'll play with it right after this session. I thought that was last time I went there and checked, and everything looked good in my end. So that's why I was like, okay, it works. But I guess it doesn't. So I do apologize for that. That obviously makes it very, very hard for you. Not quite sure here. Let me just see real quick if I can. I may need to call Macro Hill and because the way it works is that Windsor University have a contract with the
And from my previous experience, I believe that Sarah or Mike can help in this regard.
Yeah.
Because I believe they are the one who's uploading or making the link to the Macro Hill Connect.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, I've used Connect many times before, so I thought that I did it right because it's under there where it says external tool. Oh, you know what? Now I know what the problem is. Now I think I may know what the problem is. That external tool is edit settings. I think that it's currently not visible to anyway. I'll work on it as soon as we get done, so that we don't keep everybody waiting. But I think that I know where the problem is right now. It's not visible for some reason, so I'll need to break it. It's connected correctly, but it's just not visible in there. So I'll just have to change the visibility settings. So thank you about that. And
Professor, I think
know,
we haven't access to connect as a student in Windsor University. We hadn't any connect external tool and connect micro grow health at previous semester. We never had connect subscription.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, this is a new.
We used to upload a version PDF or BUP extension.
Yeah, there are many textbook publishers are not really all willing to allow people keep PDF files to institutions because they rent textbooks, and so that's why if they if they give people PDF access, whoever they give those PDFs can distribute them willingly. So it's very, very hard to give PDF files to students in a class. It can be a copyright violation if you do it without their permission. And textbook publishers, they prefer people accesses a book through Connect, where you can see it in the ebook reader. And that way they can control how long you see it and what you can download and so forth and so on. Otherwise, the textbooks, the publishers, they would not make any money. They would not have a profitable business model because nobody buys physical books anymore. People buy ebooks, and they rent ebooks for different lengths of time to students. So, for example, students can rent a textbook for 1 semester, just for 3 months, 4 months, and then institutions can obviously they have to pay money to access this Connect information. So that's just the business model that they have, and I don't know administratively how Windsor University what arrangements they had before with publishers, but that's what is happening right now, and that's what we need to deal with. I'm not able to download a PDF from Connect. It only allows download of a few pages at a time. It doesn't allow downloads of the entire book, and so Does it make sense? But anywho, I'll play around with it because I mean, in my end, I can see full access, to the textbook out there, and so I thought that it would show in your end as well. But anyway, I will fix it right after this. Trying to look at it same time when you are there, hard to talk and look at it same time. So let me look at it right after this session today, and I'll make sure I reach out to somebody if I don't get it working, and make sure that you have access to it. And so that way you have only 2 chapters that you are, behind. And this is light reading, the first 2 chapters anyway. And so my apologies for that. You have the slides, and the slides obviously cover a lot of information, but they don't cover all of the examples and those type of things. So it's important to read the chapters. Like I said, today we'll talk about these are the key learning objectives. We'll talk about identifying public issues and sort of analyzing the gap between your performance and stakeholder expectations. Last week, I mentioned a little bit that historically, there is a larger gap right now between performance of the organizations, corporations, and the public's expectation of the ethics and social responsibility. And that is simply because of the fact that now we can read about everything on social media and online. So companies have more difficult time hiding the wrongdoings that they are doing. And so, while companies are actually more ethical today than they were, say, back in the 50s, the expectations are also higher. So this gap between their performance and stakeholder expectations is wider than ever. And therefore, this course and what we talk about here, ethics and laws and social responsibility, have really become at most important to corporations. And year after year, when they list topics that are important for corporations or business world in general, ethics and social responsibility is typically has been listed number 1 or in the top, because it continues to be such a liability. Because if you do something wrong in this area, the penalties can be just very, very substantial. And so, you can, anybody who's following news knows that the Trump organization, for example, they certainly, having been in trouble, they have to, pay multiple millions of dollars, if not close to $1 billion at one point before it got reduced in law case where they were talking about wrongdoings of the Trump organization and financial mishandling. So Enron is, of course, an example that really blew up. Enron, they were doing multiple things wrong, but in a nutshell, what they were doing is that they were issuing new business entrepreneurial type of insurance, and they listed their premiums as profit before considering how many of those small businesses actually went belly up and had to use that insurance. And obviously, huge amount of them did end up using the insurance. So they ended up having a big payouts to cover those losses. But they did not count those future potential losses in their profit statements, and they completely fell apart. And so it was a combination of unethical dealings, but also just bad business, which anything that is unethical ultimately is bad business, because you can only get away with it so long before somebody tells somebody and somebody breaks the silence. So we're talking about different tools and techniques to scan an organization environments and what kind of environments they are to look at. I mean, it's not a simple thing to keep your ears and eyes open all the time. So we definitely need to think about what areas to pay attention to. Then we'll talk about issue management process. Hold on a second, there are some folks trying to get in. We need to admit everybody. So we in a face-to-face class where I teach ethics, we do an exercise of Carnival Cruise Lines, where half the class is assigned the role of the crew members of Carnival Cruise Line ship, and half of them are their headquarters. And there is an anthrax situation on a ship during one cruise where, anthrax is being found in an envelope in the ship, and several customers, passengers get anthrax poisoning. And now they have to go into a PR conference, news conference, to explain themselves. And I get to be the journalist, giving them a hard time in news conference, and asking them tough questions. So, that's a business communications example of sometimes these ethical fiascos. They become huge business communications challenge, because you have to go out there and explain to public what happened, why you acted the way you acted, and kind of clean your reputation. And sometimes it becomes very, very difficult. So we need to talk about that a little bit. What kind of managerial skills are required to respond to these emerging issues. And that's why they talk about leaders needing to be humble, because if you are arrogant, the old Greek word hubris, overweening pride, where simply your own arrogance makes you blind to issues around you. And that's why it's important to be kind of humble, keep your eyes open, ears open, to be open to learning and open to perceptions of others. Because if you think that it doesn't matter what other people think about you, well, it does. In the business world, it certainly does. If you want to be a profitable business, how public perceives you impacts, what kind of performance, what kind of profitability you have, and whether or not they're willing to utilize your services or buy your products. So it's not just marketing in terms of brand management, although that's part of it, but reputation management, image management, all of that needs to be attended to all the time. We always say that trust is earned, and it takes years to earn somebody's trust, and then it can be lost instantaneously. And sometimes recovering and regaining that trust may be much harder than how it was built initially. So we need to talk about different stages of engaging with different stakeholders, because a lot of this reputation management is proactive. You want to work on it before something happens. You don't want to just say, well, we worry about it if something happens. You actually want to make sure that you attend to it, and you have a plan in place, crisis management and communications plan, that if an ethical mishap happens, you know exactly how to go about it. Obviously, different situations require, different kind of actions, but at least generally speaking, you have some idea who is going to be responsible and who's going to do what. And so we'll talk about, how to maintain that sort of a dialogue with your networks. So what is a public issue? Any issue that is can be sort of mutual concern of organization and anyone or one or more of its stakeholders. There's so many issues these days that are, even political issues in politics that maybe once upon a time corporations could stay away from those things, but these times they can't. Couple of examples. Starbucks, they issued a statement some years ago saying that people carrying weapons, were not welcome to Starbucks stores. And that became very controversial in many states and many places where people do carry concealed weapons. There are places like Texas where it's very popular. People have licenses to carry guns, and they think that it's a safety issue, and they feel like they have a right to carry them anywhere. But Starbucks took a political stand that they did not believe in people carrying guns. They thought that it's dangerous, and so they said, if you're carrying, concealed weapons, you're not welcome to Starbucks stores. Well, how about police officers? I mean, are you then going to make an exception to security guards or police officers who obviously do carry guns, and they have to eat, have a cup of coffee too, and so it became a complicated issue. Other issue is well, not an issue, but example of ethical decision and stance that may or may not be good for business is Chick-fil-A. In the southern states, there's a fried chicken place called Chick-fil-A. Very, very popular place. I mean, I don't eat meat, though. I don't eat chicken, so I have no idea how it tastes like, but I don't understand why there's always such a long line on Chick-fil-A. But Chick-fil-A, they have made a decision not to keep their stores open on Sundays because they are owned by a very religious family, very Christian family, who have decided that Sunday is, a day to go to church, and they don't want to keep it open. Well, they wanted to open a store in Times Square in New York City. Well, obviously in New York City, the percentage of Christians is a lot lower than Alabama or Mississippi or Louisiana. And so people's perception of whether or not that's a good business, it became a little bit more controversial, because people feel like now you are listening to one stakeholder group, to this, Christian customers, more than you would be listening to other people, and you're not recognizing their holidays and their holidays and they to go to church. So it becomes very, very easily, these things become like really tricky, and so all of a sudden there are lots of issues and topics that the corporations do have to pay attention to. So all of these different people's opinions, attitudes, and beliefs about what kind of is reasonable business behavior, they may not seem like big issues to many of us, but then there are particular groups of people that they just, for whatever reason, they seem to care a lot. I think I told you the example of when I was executive director for Center for Social Responsibility and Community at State University of New York. We had volunteers doing, volunteering at parent. What is that? I lost the word, like the parenthood organization. And anyway, there was a faculty member who objected to that, and we had to deal with the crisis of faculty objecting to us working with a particular organization. So you always get kind of surprised about these things sometimes. And part of it is failure to understand. And in my example, I didn't even understand where this faculty member was coming from. He was, talking about how, early parenthood, organization had, done something cell research, to alter human DNA, and kind of like what Nazis did during World War II. And first of all, I don't think that is true. And I mean, that was his beliefs. And so my point of that is that if you, even though you don't understand as a leader where they're coming from, you still have to listen, and you have to attempt to understand and accept the fact that even though you don't understand exactly why they think that way, which often is with our values and political or religious views, we have difficult time understanding somebody else's perceptions on those things, because we are so dedicated to our own viewpoints. And so as a leader, as a manager, it is important for us to kind of stretch our open-mindedness to understand where somebody is coming from, even though that seems uncomfortable or unfamiliar to us. Because if we don't, then that gap will just grow, and the expectations of our stakeholders of how we should perform and how we're actually performing, it just becomes wider and wider. And then obviously, larger that gap is, then they created a risk of backlash or missing a business opportunity. Sometimes companies do it in knowingly, like Chick-fil-A, knowingly saying we're gonna accept the fact that we are not gonna receive any revenues on Sundays, and we're gonna make that choice consciously. Starbucks saying we're gonna accept the fact that we're gonna lose some revenues by saying that you're not welcome with your cons, kind of a thing. And so companies obviously they calculate that into their profitability. McDonald's, when they pulled out of Russia, which I think was a right choice. Companies have to make a stand. They obviously lost an enormous business opportunity, and Russians very quickly turned around and repurposed those old McDonald's restaurants and started selling the same kind of burgers and fries under a local kind of brand and name. So it's not like Russians are not eating burgers. They just found out a business opportunity when McDonald's left. So can kind of evaluate, the wisdom of McDonald's. Then, did it make any impact, or were they just making a symbolic statement? But nevertheless, their electric grid in Texas is a good example. Their electric companies in Texas were not really paying attention what customers were saying, and they continue to be a huge gap between the performance of the electric. I mean, Texas is a large state, and population is increasing rapidly. Lots of people are moving to Texas. Well, there's a lot of people moving away from Texas as well, but there's a lot of people moving to Texas, and the electric grid just continues to be, weak. And same way, like in California, Southern California, water, is a real issue because water is transported through pipelines from Northern California, and there are 14 some million people, in Los Angeles area that don't have access to water in sometimes because of the fact that it gets so dry. So in Texas they have those issues with the electric grid, and they just the electric companies is not able to meet the demands. So that's how the performance expectations gap sort of looks like. In time, the performance in terms of economic and social performance, there's the actual performance and there's a expected performance, and that performance expectation gap in time increases if companies don't take proactive action to narrow that gap, to be transparent and communicate to public about these things, and to try to be ethical, which is ironic, kind of, when you think about it. Some companies like Philip Morris that are obviously producing cigarettes, tobacco products, obviously their profitability has decreased in recent years when, in the United States and Western Europe, at least, cigarette smoking has become, very rare. It used to be, back in the day when I was a kid, everybody was smoking, there's just smoke clouds everywhere. You could not go to a restaurant or anywhere without, being in smoke, even airplanes. And now, of course, it's an absolute no-no, people smoking in a restaurant, in airplanes or whatever. So interesting, Philip Morris, they have been putting out more anti-smoking campaigns than anybody else. So it's interesting that the company that sells the product is discouraging their customers from smoking the product because the product is obviously unhealthy. So that's not common when you think about it. And those companies, why would they go to that direction? Well, of course, Philip Morris, they have to do it, in order to even stay in business, because if they don't demonstrate social responsibility that way, then government would shut them down. So government is saying, okay, you get to continue to sell those products as long as you put in investments into try to warn people about the dangers. Well, people who do smoke, they know the dangers and they still smoke. But yeah, this is just an example. So companies have to do this environmental analysis. They have to have environmental intelligence, meaning that they have to gather information about all of these external issues. The kind of external issues that you do pay attention to is often called PEST analysis. P stands for political, legal, E stands for economical, and S stands for sociocultural, and T stands for technological. So those are some areas, but we'll look at some other ones here in a minute. But these are some areas that you're constantly keeping your finger in a pulse. So if you are looking at Philip Crosby, total quality management guru, so to speak, a long time ago, asked this question and say, if you open a suitcase of a successful CEO and leader, what do you find in that suitcase? And what would you think? What do you think? You know, if you open a suitcase of a really effective, really good leader, what do you find in that suitcase? Anybody? Well, I'll answer. Yeah, I mean, if you open the suitcase of or briefcase, rather, not a suitcase, because briefcase, you know, that they carry around to work. If you open a briefcase of a successful leader, what will you expect to see in that briefcase in daily when they go to work? You know, carry their briefcase. What type of pieces of paper, what type of documents would you expect to see in there?
You're
I
asking
would
about.
sorry, go ahead.
Okay, go ahead, Samia.
No worries. I mean, I would expect that they would have, certain SOWs, statement of works for uh, the projects they are working on, plus the employees, who report to them, their report maybe. But yeah, I mean, yeah, so that would be there for sure. But there could be anything additional which I would like to hear from you, Professor.
Yeah. Anybody else? Do you agree, disagree with Samia?
Yeah, I would think that a leader who go to work on daily basis would have with him in his briefcase two things. One related to the company goals and one related to the self-satisfaction of his sales team or his employees in general. So I think he would have the sales plan and how a plan how to enhance his team to achieve their self-esteem.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense. Very similar to what Samia is saying, you know, reports and plans and you know, of the ongoing projects and things like that. And actually, that's exactly what Philip Crosby's point was. That in his opinion, he would say those would not be kind of documents that a leader would carry. That the examples of documents that leader would carry their briefcase would be like Wall Street Journal or Economist magazine, you know, to show that the leader is reading articles and things, to constantly scanning the external environment, to constantly scanning these changes in a business environment to understand how to best react to those. So some proof that the leader is keeping their finger on a pulse and constantly, you know, reading business news, business articles, scanning the environment, and a draft of the next speech. So what Billy Crosby is saying is that there should be evidence of the scanning, environmental scanning, and evidence of your attempts to communicate your company's performance and ethics and social responsibility to your stakeholders. That all of the other ones, and you're correct, the kind of things that you mentioned, you're correct. Those should be there. I mean, those are important things to pay attention, but there's not something that you would, from ethics perspective, to carry in your briefcase to ready yourself for. Mohammed, you have your hand up.
Yes, Professor. I think nowadays everything is on either laptop. There is no documents to be carried in the briefcase.
Right. Yeah.
And for the magazine, everything is on the mobile. So I think we will just
understand.
carry a laptop and
right.
tools for it.
Yeah. You're correct. Obviously, the question is, hypothetical. It's an analogy, right? But you're absolutely right. Nobody carries a briefcase anymore. By the way, they may have the iPad, that they read news on, or laptop computer in a laptop case. So you're right. I mean, and this was Philip Crosby when he was saying that this was 30 years ago. So back then computers didn't exist in that way. So the point stands though. I mean, what they are looking at in a computer. I mean, you obviously wouldn't be able to tell because you can access everything in a computer. But if you would look at into activities of that leader, you should find them daily to be concerned about environmental scanning and how to communicate these things to stakeholders. And ultimately, that's what the CEO's responsibility is: external oriented relationships. And then you have VPs and lower managers who take care of those, day-to-day reports and everything like that. So that does not mean that, in times that the CEO is not paying attention to those external issues, that they should not be paying attention to internal reports. It's tough to be a CEO. They have to pay attention to everything at the same time. So these are the kinds of things that strategically we would have to keep in our quote-unquote radar screen. Customer environment, competitor environment, economic environment, technological environment, social environment, political environment, legal environment, geophysical environment. So all of these are just, increasingly important because, in United States at least, we have more competitive environment than ever. We have more customer preferences that matter to customers are making more and more choices about what they want to do and what they want to consume than they have in the past. Economic situations fluctuating, technology is increasing very rapidly, social environment is changing, and Oh, by the way, the organization that I was referring to earlier was Planned Parenthood. Sometimes I have these brain blocks that I was like, wait a minute, I can't remember it right now. But yeah, Planned Parenthood was an example of a company that, is considered, politically speaking, in a liberal side of the political spectrum. They support Planned Parenthood because Planned Parenthood, they support adoption. And, if somebody is politically conservative and they are very much against adoption, then they would be against Planned Parenthood as an organization. And that's what this faculty member was saying. These, people are unethical, they are murderers, they kill babies, which of course they don't kill babies. Adoption was legal at that time. And now, of course, some states have illegalized, so anyway, there is, legal changes all the time, legal environment, new laws are being issued all the time. Labor employment law is changing very rapidly. You think about what reason why there were unions in the first place was, did I say adoption earlier rather than abortion? Because it was abortion is what Planned Parenthood refer, not adoption. Adoption obviously is completely legal and different issue. I'm sorry. I think this is what happens when I haven't had my morning coffee yet, because I'm living in a ski chalet over here, and we haven't had an opportunity to go to grocery store to get them. So most mornings in the last 3 days, we've just gone to the local coffee shop. But this morning, nobody's even awake yet, to go to coffee shop. So I haven't had my morning coffee. So Planned Parenthood, they support abortion, and that's what I was talking to. Liberals obviously are support of abortion within certain limits, and conservatives are against abortion, and that's why there are issues like that, like an abortion, which people have very, very emotional reactions to, and they feel very strongly about those type of issues. So now, if a company happens to be in that space where they have to deal with those kind of issues, they're gonna become a target of a lot of political attacks from one side to another. And same thing like with gun ownership. United States has way too many school shootings, way too many mass shootings. It's just they don't get publicized in that much. That often. There's much more of them are happening that get publicized in news. But when you go to websites that actually track those, look at the numbers, they are just mind blowing. And so there are people who are very concerned about easy access to, guns and gun ownership. And then there are some people who feel like constitutionally, Americans have the right to carry weapons. And so now you have to have companies like Starbucks who have to decide one way or another. And these are becoming issues more and more all the time. How about shopping malls? How about restaurants in general? And so there are things like that that companies going to have to take a stand on, political opinions. Can you stay neutral all the time? It's going to be difficult. Environmental issues. There is still there are some people out there who refuse to accept that global warming is real. And yet many organizations have to take a stand. Over here in Alaska, it's interesting. People are seeing the impact of global warming, climate change, and people are very concerned about it here because the livelihood of the state depends on tourism and depends on nature, fishing, hunting, things like that. And they're seeing, like Valdez oil spill, which is the second largest oil spill in the United States. Obviously happened over here in a coastline of a city called Valdez by Enron Valdez. So actually it didn't happen in front of Valdez, but it's not too far away where I'm right now. Issues like that are huge concerns. So companies have to be ready to have a perspective on those. We are most politically unstable right now than we have been in a very, very long time in the United States. And also, kind of global perspective, the U.S. role in the global issues is much more unclear right now than it has been, I guess, for a long time, where U.S. stands and where our importance as a country is in a global perspective. We have to be asking some questions, from ourselves in a very different way than historically, I think, and companies have to take a stand if they're global organizations, multinational organizations. They do have to keep these things in mind. So competitive intelligence is then very, very important. And it's interesting to think that there are corporate spies out there, but it's true. They're not maybe as exciting as James Bond or something like that, but they are literally people in departments that are corporate intelligence department. And interestingly, if they go to military, people go to military, they many times go to military intelligence in order to, once they retire from military, to get a corporate job in corporate intelligence. So there's similarities in the training of the military intelligence people and the corporate intelligence. And they do a variety of different ways, different things to constantly gather and analyze and manage external information about the competitors and plans, decisions, operations. Hopefully they, gather that information legally, don't do something that is sketchy. But then again, there are different opinions of what is sketchy. Like, for example, if you go to free open tour of your competitor, and it's an open tour to public. Is that ethical or unethical for you to take a tour of your competitors' facilities as a member of the public? That is an open public offer to everybody. To take photographs of the facilities, try fly over the facilities with the helicopter, or use one of those drones or something like that. Is that ethical, unethical? To go through somebody's, trash can for, things that, you might find some pieces or some plants or something. Those things are really happening. And, how far companies go, to do these kind of things, that's where the issue is, so you need to kind of comply with laws about these things. And of course, follow reasonable professional standards and fairness and honesty. And I don't think that you could justify that taking photographs, with the drone would be considered lawful and certainly not honest and fairness, because I mean you are you're not telling anybody you're doing that, then you're sneaking and taking photographs. So that seems to be a little bit unacceptable. Even taking a tour of competitors' facilities, if you don't tell them that you are working for the competitor, is that fair? Well, I don't know. Obviously, digging into somebody's trash can is not professional, and it's not maintaining professional standards. So these are things that are really happening, and they have to be happening. But again, they have to be done within the law. This materiality term comes from accounting, and it's basically a way to say how material certain issues are to certain stakeholders. If you see this, and I'm going to try to see if I can go back, and if I can zoom over here a little bit. Why doesn't it zoom right now for me? You should be able to see over here different topics over here that maybe it works better right now. I still can't see very well, but anyway, idea is that you have how material something is versus medium. What is it? So you have importance to the company, importance to stakeholder. So you have all these issues over here that can be ethics and integrity, sustainability, trust in products, human rights, packaging and waste, climate change up there. All of these different topics and issues, you can map them like this. You can say, okay, where are they in terms of importance to stakeholders, and where are they in terms of importance to company? And you can kind of get an idea of where you are with that. I mean, there are certainly, ideally, the issues that are important to you are important to your stakeholder, and vice versa. But in reality, of course, not everybody agrees, on all issues all the time, and you have a variety of different stakeholders, and depending on who that stakeholder is, the materiality of that issue may or may not, like I said, political stand, depending on who your stakeholder are in terms of the political perspective, certain issues may or may not be important to them. And the same way politically. And our countries, religiously, our country is divided between politics and religion, and a lot of other issues, race and so forth. And we have to understand those divisions. And the problem is that we have difficult time if we are very, very liberal, for example. We have very difficult time understanding some people who are very conservative. People who are very, very Christian have difficult time understanding somebody who's Muslim or Jewish or Hindu or Buddhist, because they're so dedicated in their own perspective that they are not really entertaining the other perspective. And that's difficult in business because in one hand, your own culture and your own tradition and your own religious values will say that it's important for you to be, dedicated Christian or dedicated Muslim or, whatever that you are is so important to you as a person. But then, in a business setting, you have to try to stretch your open-mindedness about it to understand that the other people, if they come from different religious perspective or different political perspective, that they do look at things differently, and they don't understand your perception or opinions or values any more than you understand theirs. And so it becomes very tricky for corporate leadership to, find, to kind of understand all stakeholders equally when we all have our own values and all corporate leaders have their own values. So how do you put those on aside in order to be fair and equal to all stakeholders similarly? So it becomes a tricky issue, and so that's what I meant, that different issues become important for different people at the different times. So it's a constant analysis type of process. So what you do with in terms of issue management process is that you identify issues, you then obviously identifying, that's where that open-mindedness is kind of required, is to regardless of your own bias, because we tend to, with our own bias, we tend to go after issues that we care about the most because they are biased for us, and we have these blind spots to issues that somebody else may see. Like I said, that as a leader at the Center for Social Responsibility, I certainly didn't perceive anybody have an issue with Planned Parenthood. I mean, in Scandinavia, where I was born and raised, abortion was looked at very differently, and certainly would not have. I was not raised to have those kinds of concerns about an organization like Planned Parenthood. And so now, when a faculty member, confronted in a very powerful way our activities on that, I really had a difficult time understanding it. It was not on my radar. It was not on my horizon, because I could not even imagine that somebody would say something like that. And that's how often these things get you, is that you are not able to identify issues that I see issues to somebody else. They're not issues to you, but that doesn't mean they're not issues to somebody else. So anticipating those emerging concerns and understanding that other people have different perceptions, and being aware of the fact that those actions that your corporation takes may rub somebody the wrong way, or even be illegal in some circumstances and situations. Because legality is a complicated issue too. Legality is all interpretation of law argued by certain attorneys. And you have to be careful, because your customers can always find some ambulance chaser attorney who's willing to take a case in search for glory and fame and money. And we in the United States, people sue each other for all kinds of different things. So your perception of whether something's legal versus somebody else's perception is same thing like ethical perception. We don't always agree. And so now you identify issues, you analyze issues, you have to kind of break it apart. And in order to break it apart, you have to understand enough about it. You have to be able to study that opposing perspective to understand how they're thinking about it is, how the issue is likely to evolve with time. Diversity, for example. I mean, I love diversity. I like to live in a environment and deal with international people. That's why I love talking here to you guys so much, because it's great to be meeting all of you from different parts of the world, which in my daily life wouldn't otherwise normally get an opportunity to meet. And here in the United States, some people refuse to accept diversity, especially in the southern states, which is one reason I moved away from Alabama. But the reality is that by 2050, there's no majority anymore, that there will be more interracial and other race people than white people in the United States. So we have to understand that this issue will continue to evolve. And if you are diehard not accepting diversity, you're obviously going to be on the losing side, because the reality of it is that, it will disappear. The majority Caucasian, white American type of, it's going to disappear. And so same thing in leadership ranks. Men are going to have to accept that women are increasing in numbers, and there's still a lot of work to do, but it's getting better. And so men are going to have to accept that they're going to be working with female colleagues more and more and more in leadership ranks, even in military. I mean, you have women entering military right now, which traditionally, is something that didn't happen. So again, these are some issues that we kind of have to keep in a radar and understand how they will evolve with time, whether we like it or not. Environmental concerns like the global warming. I mean, we're going to have to struggle with it globally, whether we like it or not. So we're going to have a plan of increasingly looking to adjust our performance, our production, and our activities to be more environmentally safe and defend ourselves, against environmental activist groups and other kinds of stakeholders if we are not meeting those standards. And so all of these issues, we have to generate options. if we have a plan is often 50% of the success of the action. Complex judgments about incorporating ethical considerations. And later on in this course, we'll look into ethical principles and ethical systems of thought, because that's complicated. What's ethical, to one is not ethical to somebody else. We follow different ethical sets of guidelines, and so we have to make some complicated decisions about these things. And then, of course, take action when needed. Hopefully, there are some issues that you never have to really take action, but it's good to take have a plan of action and take proactive action when that's necessary or needed. And so taking action is important, and then of course evaluate the results. So it's kind of like this plan, do, check, act cycle. You would not know how your ethical issues management process is, whether it's not successful or not, if you wouldn't turn around and continuously evaluate those results. It's 9:58 right now, so let's take a 15-minute break, and I'll try to play with the access to your textbook while we are taking a little break. And I don't have a coffee over here, so I think I'm gonna drink a Diet Coke or something. So let's get back in 15 minutes, 15 after 10 o'clock for me, but 15 after whatever it's in your neck of the woods. Okay?
Sure,
See you
Professor.
soon.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I'm back. If anybody's listening, if you can take a look at the access to textbook right now, it was just a Moodle. It should have been just Moodle setting that I forgot to make it visible. That's all. So it wasn't visible to students in a Moodle. You should see it right now.
Yes, it is there, Dr. Tom.
Okay, great.
Yes,
And I
it's
apologize
full,
in
yes.
not that this is about me and no excuses, but last couple of weeks have been really, really tough and hard, because moving is hard anyway, right? I mean, a lot of details, clearing up, your house, but it's been 90 degrees with probably 90-degree humidity in southern Alabama, where I've been moving. And it's been, moving in that kind of a humid heat, it's difficult. It's very difficult. Carrying heavy stuff. So I've been dehydrated and not that anybody wants to hear it, but sweating like so much that I had to take a shower 5 times a day. And so in the middle of that, I simply just forgot to make it visible. So it's completely my bad.
That's okay. Definitely okay.
Okay, 16 after. Is everybody here? Anybody who is not here, please raise your arm. So so the issues management process. You think about this, and this is very straightforward, of course. The tricky thing about it is that something that is so straightforward, why do so many organizations, corporations fail to follow this simple process to continuously identify, analyze, generate options, take action, evaluate results? And what do you think? Why do you think that it would be difficult for corporate leaders sometimes to be, and managers to be attentive to these issues? Why do you think that they would ignore this? and not do anything, not to follow proper process.
Simply because they deny the issue or the problem they are facing.
Yes. Yes, I
Maybe
think
also it's more profitable in their opinion to not follow the rules, or sometimes the ignorance and the rapid change of every day we have new things, we have new rules, we have new perspective. Sometimes they are just ignorant, cannot cope up with this speed change or rapid change.
Yes, yes, absolutely. All three of you are absolutely correct. Sometimes they intentionally or unintentionally ignore issues. Sometimes they truly are ignorant of them. Sometimes they are in denial because it would mean that they have perhaps done something wrong. People have a very difficult time accepting that maybe they have done something wrong in the past. And so, and like I said earlier, most of us are, we all stereotype, we all are prejudiced, to a certain degree, and ignorant in the sense that we don't understand other cultures, other religions, other political viewpoints, issues that are issues to us. We don't often understand why they are issues to somebody else. And traditional business leaders are very finance oriented. If you want to be a CEO, getting into finance would probably be the best route to becoming a CEO. Not that many CEOs come from human resources management background, for example. So based on our training, many CEOs have been trained to look at certain issues and focus on certain stakeholders more than other stakeholders. And it's very understandable. It's the upbringing, their own values and, beliefs of thought, their own upbringing that influence them. Leaders are humans like everybody else. And then, of course, their training and education biases them to look at certain kinds of things. And so there's a tendency to overemphasize certain stakeholders and underemphasize certain other stakeholders. And then when something happens, it's typically the kind of stakeholder that we just didn't see. We didn't see them coming. It's those underwater torpedoes that I always used to call them. We used to, in LA, when I worked there in the university, we used to always say, any torpedoes been hitting today, because you don't see them coming. So those are the kinds of things that hurt the most, that we don't see coming. And we don't see certain things because none of us can be 100% open-minded to everything. We all have our biases, whether we like it or not, whether we, accept it or not, but that's true. And so, it's just part of humanity. Now, some companies have systems in place, and that's why it's important not to just rely on one individual to be doing all the scanning, and to have a diverse corporate intelligence department where you have broad spectrum of different kind of people working in that department. I mean, how would you understand women's issues if you don't have women working for you? How would you understand, African American Black issues if you don't have any Blacks working for you? How would you understand Muslim issues if you don't have any Muslims working for you? I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And so that's why all of these things are kind of connected and linked. Diversity helps you to become more socially responsible, ethical, and helps you to because in order to understand the stakeholders, you need to have representatives of those kinds of stakeholders in your organization. So this is sort of a complete philosophy that impacts your employee selection choices and everything. And the process of awakening, I know that sounds very spiritual, but the process of opening your mind to these issues requires some introspection and some reflection and some systematic thought in designing a intelligence department that is able to do the job effectively. And that's not something that traditionally is focused in And so many times these corporate leaders just don't have the training to do that, because that's not something that historically have been thought about. So how do you then organize, for effective issue management? Board of directors and top management levels can involve everybody. If you have a good board of directors, the job of board of directors is to keep an eye on these external issues also. And so you don't want to, again, you don't want it to be just one person. You want to include entire leadership team, entire board of directors, and you look at these kind of capabilities, understanding the change in business context, that you choose managers, and you hope that your board of directors have an understanding of how rapidly moving the business environment is today. It wasn't very rapidly moving back in the sort of 50s or 60s. It was relatively stable. Right now, we are moving ahead in a head spinning speed. There are issues like artificial intelligence that it's coming so fast that we have not even yet comprehended what and how it's going to change, any industry. Start thinking about all the possibilities, and it's mind blowing, really, truly. Leaders have to have this ability to lead in the face of complexity, to understand that these are complex issues, and you have to study them. You have to, watch your news. You have to read good quality sources, and that's why I emphasize in my classes that I teach, I emphasize information literacy so much. It's very, very important in today's world for all of us to understand the difference between, fake news and proper news. Last time talked about, and somebody made a comment here saying that these days you can't even trust news. You can't trust what news are saying. We talked about Israel and Gaza and Palestinians, and you can't trust news. We don't know what's really happening there based on news. And so where do you go for proper information? And that's why business leaders have to understand that not everything that you find in the internet is true, and that you can react to fake news, and you have to really make sure that you validate information and that you use quality sources. That's why I say that Wall Street Journal and The Economist, are good sources. They are perhaps the two best business newspaper and business magazine out there. Harvard Business Journal, it's an opinion piece. It's easy to read, fun articles that are more or less opinion. So it's not an academic journal. Forbes magazine, Fortune magazine, very biased, very biased. They really don't, fundamentally share any news. They are opinion articles more or less, or interviews or something like that also. So it's not to say that they don't have some value, but not necessarily the kind of stuff that you want to take seriously. And then you have to understand systems theory, that everything is connected. Everything is connected to everything else. And that you have to stay connected to those external stakeholders in dialogue and partnership, and to seek those partnerships continuously, to understand that your organization doesn't just end at the boundary of your headquarters or your internal environment, that all of that external environment is part of your system, and that you operate in that system, and it's your job as a leader to help the organization to be the lead, to lead the organization to be in that system, as a part of that system. So there are different stages in a business stakeholder relationship. There are sort of the relationship kind of goes through these stages. Sometimes organizations, they are inactive, they ignore stakeholder concerns. They are reactive when they only act only when they are forced to act. They react. Proactive is when companies try to activate stakeholder concerns, anticipate. So being, and that's obviously, better than being inactive and reactive. But ultimately, what you really want to be is not just proactive, but interactive. When you are actively engaging in an ongoing relationship with mutual respect, openness, and trust with your community and everybody that is a stakeholder. You can't, it's good to be proactive and good to have a plan, but how can you be proactive if you don't interact? So you have to be able to move from inactivity to interactivity, and recognize where you are in the process. So what are those sort of drivers of stakeholder engagement? It's a relationship. I think I mentioned this before, but I like cars. I'm a car guy. And I realized that when I buy a car, I'm not just buying a car. I'm buying a relationship. I'm buying a car based on that dealership's or that car brand's ability to remain engaged in a customer relationship with me. Because unfortunately, there is no car that doesn't have some maintenance issues and some, if you have a car under warranty, you want to be able to go take it to the dealership and then getting your loaner car and taking care of it without any questions asked, and service you really, really well. It's a relationship. And if they service you really, really well for the time that you own that car, you tend to go back to that same dealership and same brand because you're already familiar with how they deal with things. So as a customer, the relationship is very obvious. But it's been also shown that corporations that have active relationship with shareholders, they to be operating better and then to be more profitable because they keep in touch with the investors, and so even if they're hard financial times, the investors will hang in there and support them because they have been communicated well and they understand what's going on. So these are just some examples, and so you have to when you engage both the company and stakeholders to have urgent and important goal, that you both understand what the goal is, where the company is going and what the goal of that relationship is, and that there's a motivation to participate and there's a organizational capacity to engage with one another. Obviously, if you don't have PR department, you don't have any of these external departments that engage with environment, it's going to be very difficult for you to do that, and you're going to end up looking unprofessional and unprepared if you haven't thought it through. So, for example, this would be a goal would be like to improve corporate reputation, to earn a license to operate, to win approval of society. Those would be all stakeholders that you identify to be involved, like the society, the state, the municipality, to that are the ones that you're going to have that kind of relationship with, and then you change corporate behavior and issues of concern according to your stakeholders' needs. And motivation, you need stakeholder involvement because of the expertise and control of critical resources. You interact with stakeholders because, well, you need the support and you need the knowledge to understand what the concerns would be. And they don't necessarily tell you if they don't care. So if you're not maintaining the relationship in a positive way and give them a reason to care about you, a motivation to care about your needs, they won't tell you what their concerns are, and you're going to be in a blind. Some companies, they do a lot. I mean, it's very difficult to get customer feedback. When you think of, I don't know, example, I remember Taco Bell used to at one point, they would, you would, every time they give you a receipt, the receipt has this phone number, and they try to encourage you and said, it's a free blah 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 taco or something like that. Win a taco, free taco by calling to this 1-800 number and sharing your opinion. And I remember when they were having that, and I used to shamefully go to Taco Bell a lot. I would always see that 1-800 number, but not once did I call. It would take me 2 minutes to call that number and earn a free taco, but I just, didn't want to call. So the point is that customers don't, just because you leave a 1-800 number there and try to give them a small incentive, very few people actually take action and call. So collecting this feedback and getting this information from stakeholders is actually unbelievably difficult. And so, they are, just because you see some, governmental campaigns, protest and whatever, often those are inadequate, to change corporate behavior. So in same way like corporations, are trying to impact the society, the society is also trying to impact the corporations. But if you go out there and, stand with the sign and say, I won't go, or this, don't do this, don't do that, corporations don't respond to that type of a force either. So there may be a motivation to try to influence each other's behavior, but it has to be in a positive, engaged relationship level, and not, campaigns and protests and things like that. And so there, of course, has to be capacity, committed leaders, engaged leaders, well-funded department of the stakeholder affairs, experienced staff, core group of activists. So from both ends, for the companies and the stakeholders, and you gotta have some knowledge and willingness and capacity to do this. Social media, of course, is huge these days. It's concerning because not everything that is on social media is true. Of course, we've learned about bad government entities globally, creating fake news and sites out there and influencing opinion. So this happens in a corporate in a way as much as in a government ways, because one way to look at the world is that multinational corporations really have more power in some sense than governments, than state, country governments have. So social media, they're definitely it's an effective way of addressing public issues and engage shareholders, stakeholders. And you can identify and solve problems faster, you can share information better, and you can bring customers' ideas to market earlier. So they are positive and good if you use them positively, platforms to engage with multiple stakeholders, etc. But the key here is to remember is that social media is not for marketing. And this is what I think so many companies really get wrong. They see social media as, let's advertise our products. Social media is not an advertisement outlet, marketing media. It is an engagement media. And the whole idea of a social media means that you engage. And so whatever you do in social media, the goal is to get in the back and forth discussion, not just to, So yes, it is a way of bringing products and product designs out to market faster and earlier, but you have to do it in an interactive way, in where you are inviting the people who are engaging with you to share their opinions and demonstrating that you are taking action based on that. And I haven't seen too many companies who are doing that effectively, to be honest with you. I follow certain companies, car companies, for example, because I like cars. All they do is to have fancy, advertisement of their cars, and they really don't do any engagement. And so, as simple as this is, very, very few companies are really doing this in a way that makes sense and that really helps them to be ethical and helps them to, maintain these stakeholder relationships. So you want to have this stakeholder dialogue. You want to come to face-to-face conversations. It used to be golf courses, right? Leaders would go to play golf with the stakeholders or something like that. They would go to country clubs and they would hang out, they wine and dine and that type of thing. Well, that has been replaced now by LinkedIn, social media. Not completely replaced, but it's moving to more into that realm. So now leaders have to be savvy in engagement in social media. And that's difficult because many leaders are still baby boomers and they're not really technologically savvy. That doesn't come naturally for them. So in that conversation, however you do it, online or physically face-to-face, it better, obviously, as more face-to-face, the better it is. You have to identify those core interests and concerns. What is the common definition of a problem? Many times you think that there's a problem, but you sit down with somebody and you find that there's this misinformation, misunderstanding of certain ideas and concepts and what's actually going on, that there really isn't a problem. Once you go into kind of a fact-finding mission and you actually reach out to people and have conversations. And then, of course, understandings and concerns, and you have to have mutual understanding and concerns of all parties, that you understand things similarly, or you're concerned about the same things. And then, you work with invent innovation solution and implement them. PayPal was an example. They had some real financial difficulties at one point, and they were able to engage with the investors, and they were able to negotiate some, basically say, look, your success is our success, and you trust us, we trust you, and we work together. And they were able to maintain that sort of a relationship, and they were able to survive and deal with some of the crisis. Addressing issues, working collaboratively with other businesses, concerned persons, and organizations in your stakeholder networks. Allbirds shoes, they produce environmentally sustainable kind of shoes, and they were able to really continue to very effectively collaborate with the stakeholders, because in order to be socially responsible like that, everything that you do has to be naturally produced, rubber and fabrics and this and that. And in order to do that, you have to have all of your suppliers understanding what you are aiming to do, and to be able to negotiate that systematically and engage your stakeholders. If you do all of this well, you'll gain some strengths. You will be able to alert companies to emerging issues. You'll be able to defend yourself in the best possible way if something does come up. Things always come up, but you want to be prepared for this. Give firm access to information via networking. Have expertise, technical and scientific, in specific areas that you become a knowledge leader, and your community recognizes you as such and values you, and therefore they trust you more in what you do. You have better results in the eyes of public. Not just gimmicky, not just PR, but to actually be seen as a socially responsible company. And you look at some companies who've been that way, and they've been very, very, very successful. Ben & Jerry's ice cream company, for example. People like their products because they like the social responsibility and the message behind it too. And it's everywhere. You go to Ben & Jerry's stores, the ice cream shops, and you can see, the message everywhere. So it resonates with people. So it meets the society's expectations and generates, good solutions to help to be sustainable. And so ultimately it improves companies' reputation. So the bottom line of this is that being ethical, being socially responsible, being legally compliant is good business. It's good business. It's not just something that we do because it's a nice thing to do. It feels good, or it's ethically right, because it's consistent with your values and you feel good about it, whatever. That's not all. It's good business. It's essential good business, and every corporation should open their eyes to this, to realize that this is the way to go. So does anybody have any examples to describe, good or bad, of companies that you know of that have done extraordinary good job in being ethical and done a good job in maintaining these stakeholder relationships, or do you have any disaster stories of how somebody has really tumbled? Anybody?
Sure, Tommy, I can share some examples. Of working in like IT industry, it sometimes is very difficult to, see things happening always ethical. So I have good and bad examples both. So I worked in few local companies here in Long Island, and I saw that because it was like small company and really under one umbrella of, one CEO, and then maybe 50 to 200 or something employee in that company, they were not following like ethics when it comes to diversity. So when I tried to, raise my voice and let the HR know, what I heard next is really, HR is taking their side instead of, doing anything against them. So what I learned in so many years here in States, that's mostly HR works in favor of like, or, management, because anyways, it's like, I think they become defensive that this is like their organization and they need to defend. But in some organizations, I saw that the management is very ethical. They are having these trainings for not just for new employees, but like mandatory trainings for all the employees or even contractors who are working in the environment. And that
Mhm.
really helped, seeing that ethics and diversity in the teams. So yes, I mean, it's like really both, but I see that most of the organizations are following the ethics, and they are definitely are more diverse in nature now, as if I see like few years back.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that good example, and I appreciate you quote unquote raising your voice. I'm sure you didn't like raise your voice, but raising the awareness to the issue. What you mean, right? Because I mean,
Yes, yes.
raising your voice doesn't work, but yeah, I know what you meant.
Yeah, no, definitely. I tried to bring their attention towards the issues, and then also suggested that if we can have some trainings for such, for
Yeah.
example, some old employee working and, treating someone in brown differently because we are coming from different countries. So, those kind of issues. So I raised that in a way that they are aware and they have some trainings done for these employees.
Yes. Yes. Very cool. Excellent. Excellent. Thank you for sharing. Olena, you wanted
Hello,
to say
everyone.
something?
Hello, Professor. I would like also to share my experience. I started my career in hospitality industry, and I would say that it's one of the most corporate industries in my mind, because we had all procedures, we had HR departments, we had absolutely standard and ethic lectures for everything, onboardings and offboardings. And I can share that currently I'm working as business consultant and faced to and have experience with different companies, and it really differs from international companies, which also have like different procedures, like inclusion, also like different cultures. And working in international companies, yes, definitely there are some benefits when you can know better other people there, like it's any kind of specific.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that. And you make a good point about hospitality industry. I mean, it's so sensitive, right? I mean, tourism hospitality industry is so sensitive to people's perceptions. I mean, nobody wants to go to vacation in a place that is they consider to be unethical or and yeah, I mean, there's just so many issues, with that. I've lived in a lot of places that are, supported by hospitality. Hawaii, I used to live in Hawaii and go to school in Hawaii a lot, and I mean, Hawaii as a state, they have to do continuous brand management out there to keep a positive image to people. Alaska, same thing, very touristy. Tourism over here is main industry really, and Colorado. So these are just examples of places where I have seen, exactly what you're saying, importance in a hospitality industry of maintaining the sort of positive perception. And restaurants, it doesn't matter if the food is good or not. If restaurant is being perceived to doing some unethical things in a public's eye, people just don't go there. So that's an interesting example, just an industry that is extra sensitive to these things. And good work. Thanks for sharing. And great to hear that you are consulting, out there. I love consulting work. Have done it a lot. So doing a great job there.
Thank
Great.
you.
Great. Yeah. I mean, you're all experienced professionals. So, think about and reflect on these things that you have seen and witnessed. During the next week, I'm gonna post some instructions on course assignments, and so in your course paper, this is an opportunity for you to look into this kind of tell a story, tell your story, or talk about some of these kind of ethical. So what I would like it to be is that in course paper, it's sort of theoretically focused in looking at these issues, not specific company, although you can share many examples, but it's not a investigation of a specific company, but more an investigation of a specific issue and an ethical. So for example, child labor, you could say, I want to write about child labor and how difficult the different regulations, laws, and ethics around that are for multinational corporations around the world. So that would be a specific issue. It could be human rights. It could be women's rights. It could be any of those things. So if we know that in Japan, for example, most corporations are led by men, and that Japanese corporate leaders have sometimes difficult time dealing with female leaders because they're not accustomed to that in their culture, should I then hire only male leaders to do business with Japanese? Well, how do I deal with the equal employment opportunity and all of those laws in labor employment law, and do not discriminate against women? So all of these issues become kind of complicated. So I would like your paper to be sort of about that kind of an issue, and then maybe share examples of companies that have been on the wrong side or right side of that issue. And then your case study, I'll look in the text. Now you only have example of text. There's some cases in the text, so you can have a choice again of those cases, and study your case, tell a story, and go deeper than the book case is about looking at that particular case example. And so yeah, the same thing like HR class essentially, but that's kind of like what I'm thinking. So reflect on these issues. Think about what ethical issues concern you, are important to you, and what you want to kind of investigate and write your paper on. Make sense?
Yes.
So if you have any questions, you know where you can find me. My email. I get my email, straight to my mailbox here on my computer. So use my email, use my phone number. If you if you are within US, send me a text. If you are international, use WhatsApp. But yeah, keep in touch, stay in touch, and let me know what you need. I want you to be successful. I want everybody to get the best possible grades. In a graduate school, it's only A's and B's that are acceptable. So our goal is to make sure that everybody gets an A or a B. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter which one, because it's all the same. So yeah, let me know how I can help. I have high expectations for you because I was blown away by your academic excellence in the last class that I taught here. I mean, your papers, your writing skills, your research skills, that's amazing stuff. You guys are great students. I looked at the grade book just a little while ago for accreditation purposes, and I mean, 100%, of the students who took my last class had met the expectations, the goal set for the accreditation wise. So I expect the same here. You're smart people. So let's engage, and let me know how I can help you. Okay. And have a great week. And enjoy where you are at.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you so much for the good words.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.